Chapter 5 Musical Cube Tridimensional Music. Tridimensional music. Just as colors and everything that surrounds us is tridimensional, music is also tridimensional. It has emptiness that is silence, dots called notes and beats, lines or dyads, planes or triads, and becomes tridimensional with the chords or sevenths. And just as all color fits inside the 8 ends of the color cube, we will build a cube where we can fit all the music in the world. Sound is tridimensional. Sound has also 3 dimensions. The length of the wave that defines if it's high or low. Sound has also 3 dimensions. The length of the wave that defines if it's high or low, its amplitude or loudness, and the time or duration of the sound. The hearing system catches tridimensional sounds. The ear can identify very accurately where a sound is coming from, translated into electrical pulses that the brain then decodes into sound. The human ear can hear frequencies ranging from 40 to 2,560 vibes per second, VXS, and notes do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do repeat themselves in each of these intervals. Sounds below 40 VXS and above 2,560 cannot be perceived by the human ear. The notes cube. The emptiness in music is called silence. However, it doesn't exist in this world. Just as emptiness in the mathematical cube, silence is merely an abstraction of the human mind. No one has ever heard silence. Even the wind and the movement of the wings of a butterfly make some sound. The equivalent of the points are the notes, and there are 8. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, and do of the next octave. Notes are also abstractions of the human mind. Since sound has 3 dimensions, no one has ever heard a single note. The musical notes cube. We can place all the notes in a cube. Each note is one of the 8 edges of the cube. Point 000 is do, and point 111 is also do of a higher octave. The way the notes are laid out in the cube is not arbitrary. To place them, we used as a map the little piano below. Only this layout accommodates the tones and half tones in the cube, the same way they are in the piano. The chords cube, major root. Music is a sound, and so, if sound is tridimensional, so is music. Like in the mathematical model, music has emptiness, silence, points, notes, lines, dyads, planes, triads, and becomes a cube with the sevenths. The way to build the chords cube is to place on one side of the horizontal axis X a full tone and the other side a half tone. If we intersect a vertical axis Y with the same full tone and half tone on each extreme, we build the plane of the triads. The sevenths cube, full tones. To add the 3rd dimension to the triads cube, we add another axis Z, exactly like the previous 2, with a full tone in one extreme and a half tone on the other. We can now view the 8 sevenths that are the basis for all the music in the world, from 000, Tristan chord, to 111, delta chord, and in between the rest of the combinations. The 7th cube, half tones. When the root is a half tone instead of a full tone, C as opposed to C, or A as opposed to A, the order of the axes change. The full tone is placed into the left and the half tone to the right. Since sevenths are built by adding an additional chord to an existing triad, then the 7th cube that are rooted in a half tone instead of a full one also change as illustrated in the following sevenths. The 13 cubes that form all the melody in the world. There are 13 7th cubes, one for each note and half note. There is a 7th cube in Do major or C. There is one for La major or A and the rest of the notes and half tones. No matter what the root is, as long as the rule of intervals between notes is respected, chords and sevenths can be built from the cube. Not all chords are consonant. Perhaps the Tristan 7th in Do major is terribly dissonant and therefore impractical. But that doesn't mean it cannot be built off the cube. Music corrects this with the diatonic chords. Every major and minor scale has 7 special triads, because even though tones or semitones are separated as much as they can be, successive white keys of the piano may cause terribly dissonant and therefore impractical sounds. We will not elaborate on how diatonic scales alter the construction of certain triads or sevenths. Suffice to say that these are exceptions or diatonic chords that substitute other tones or semitones in the interest of harmony, do not invalidate the music, is tridimensional and can be mapped in uCube. Music is tridimensional. If sound is tridimensional, and the sevenths that form all the music in the world can be formed out of a cube, then music is tridimensional. The three dimensions of music, the DNA of music, are its rhythm, melody, and harmony. Music is both a form of art and a science, and so it's produced by all hemispheres of the brain and by the emotions. The melody, which is the science, how to produce sound, how to play an instrument, is created by the left side, the harmony. Which sounds combine and which not, which sound consonant and which dissonant, is responsibility of the right hemisphere. The rhythm or beat is the responsibility of the body, in concrete, the heart. And so, the essence of music, like that of the human being, is formed of three parts: body, rhythm, mind, melody, and spirit, harmony. Tridimensional music, rhythm. The body of music is rhythm. Rhythm is the part of music that interacts more immediately and spontaneously with the body. Without it, music would be pleasant enough, but it would be brain food. Rhythm makes the music hypnotic and sensuous. The rhythm of music interacts with the individual by synchronizing with his heartbeat, and this synchronicity is accountable for uncontrollable urges to dance under certain rhythms. Experts define rhythm as the incarnation of musical time. As humans, we are familiar with rhythm even before birth. Our first exposure happens inside the mother's womb with her heart pulse. The notes in rhythm are called beats, and they have three dimensions also: pulse, tempo, and metrics. Tridimensional rhythm. The game of rhythm is beat, just as the game of music is to produce notes with instruments. So the game of rhythm is to produce beats with instruments, percussions, and body, like soldiers marching, or voice. The rule of rhythm is accent. Not all beats are equal. Accent is the volume of rhythm. When a beat is accentuated, it's meant to stand above the rest of the beats. As humans, we are familiar with rhythm even before birth. Therefore, the beat of our body is always a step ahead of the beat of a song. When rhythms fall slightly ahead or behind, are slightly more or less accentuated, or slightly off the normal beat of a rhythm, an arrhythmia, that's when rhythms become tridimensional. So not only rhythms are tridimensional, so are arrhythmias or syncopations. They can only move in three directions: up and down, ahead and behind, and closer and further, more or less accentuated. Rhythm cube. The cube of syncopation. A rhythm can be deviated in three directions: up, down, left, right, back, forth. Tridimensional music, melody. Music is a language. Just as literature is written with words, music is written with melody. In literature, writers use the ABC. In music, the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si writers put letters together to form notes. Musicians put notes together to form chords and sevenths. Literates then add the words into phrases, paragraphs, chapters, and books. Composers into songs, movements, concertos, and symphonies. Melody is the language of music, what the mind and the reason create. Just as in tennis, the game is to hit a ball with a racket. In music, the game is to play notes with the voice or with musical instruments. To create melody is the act of music, and so melody and music are created with notes. Melody cube. High, pitch, low, close, scale, far, slow, tempo, fast. Tridimensional music, harmony. The motive, the soul, the intention of music is harmony. It's the part of music created by the right side of the brain. How to combine notes, rhythms, and chords so they sound harmonically is the art of music. The mind can create nuclear energy, but the soul defines how to use it. Same with music. Intelligence can create chords, rhythms, read music, and learn instruments, but it's the soul that determines which are harmonic and which not, which sound good next to each other and which not. Which ones can be combined provoke laughter, love, or tears? Many have known as much about music as Beethoven or Mozart, perhaps even more virtuosos. But it wasn't Beethoven's soul that wrote the ninth and Mozart's who did the magic flute. Tridimensional harmony. Harmony tells us when notes require sharpening, when rhythms require accent, how to combine, cross, or overimpose them. And that is what makes music an art. Harmony has rules and tricks. It's like a delicate or complicated machine of a clock, where every new particle can mean the difference between perfection or chaos. Harmony is the progression of chords, between dominant and tonic, minor and major, augmentations and diminutions, suspensions and passing notes, sound and silence and other chords and rhythms combinations that make music sound warmer and fuller. Harmony is what enriches the emotional possibilities of music. That's why harmony is the soul of music. Music patterns. We cannot claim that all the music in the world fits inside one cube. There are at least 12 more cubes like the one in C major, presented before. There is a cube for D major, for E, and for many full tone and half tone, but they are built identically. So the same tridimensional model that works for C major is good for the rest of the notes. And so, the musical cube can now interact with other cubes and help us understand what chords appeal to the mind, soul, and body. What chords encourage work, awaken passion, or relax the soul. The color of music. If we combine the color cube and the seventh cube, we can associate each color with a seventh chord. The Tristan chord, for instance, is the equivalent of black, and the delta chord is the equivalent of white. Implications. 1. The model of the cube is capable of showing results in full color and Dolby sound. But more importantly, 2. Music based on diminished seventh, blue, interacts with the body, while music built upon minor seventh, green, is good for the mind and work, while music based on augmented seventh, red, appeals to the soul. Music can be customized to needs, wants, and feelings, and this model explains how. The timbre cube. The human ear is so accurate, it can identify from 2 different voices, 2 different flutes, or even the same flute played by a different player. This is called the timbre. Every instrument has a timbre, and we obtain it by decomposing the sound they make in its melodic, rhythmical, and harmonic elements. For instance, drums are meant for rhythm. They lack melody or harmony. The flute is meant for melody. Notes are easily recognizable from the sound it produces and is used to add melody and seldom for rhythm. The organ is used for all, harmony, rhythm, and melody. We can chart the musical instruments in the timbre cube, placing them in their right combination of melody, harmony, and rhythm. The instruments timbre cube. The octaves cube. Do repeats itself in the cube, but not exactly. The Do 000 and the Do 111 differ fundamentally because they belong to a different octave. An octave is the interval between one musical pitch and another, with half or double its frequency. As we move higher or lower in the musical scale, notes repeat themselves. There are as many as 7 Do in one each frequency. There is a low Do in the 40 VXS and another one in the 80 VXS, 160, 320, 640, 1280, and 2560. Each frequency or octave is another cube, and this is very important, not only in musical language, but in all aspects of life. For example, Haiti and Switzerland do not belong to the same cube or octave. And just as in music, one moves from a lower to a higher octave to produce the same note with a different tone. So countries can fall or climb to higher and lower octaves. And just as in music, when a country falls to a lower octave, its frequency changes too. For instance, Mexico's GDP fell 10% in 2020. Such drop threw more than 10 million families to poverty, caused thousands of businesses to close, and created 3 million new unemployed, 500,000 who lost their job, and 2.5 millions who didn't find one. Mexico's reality changed radically. The entire country slowed down and became poorer. It fell to a lower octave. Other countries like China or Korea have been steadily moving to higher octaves, and it's impossible to compare their situation today to the one prevailing 20 years ago. They have sharpened, got more acute, and achieved higher and higher notes. The octaves cube. Poetry cube. The first cousin of the music cube, some would claim the brother of the music cube, is the poetry cube. A poem is not merely a compilation of words. There is also how the words are used, combined, rhymed, punctuated, and spelled. Conventional language rules do not always apply to poetry. The grammar in poetry depends on the beat, the meter, and the rhythm of the poem. Poetry is also tri-dimensional, as everything else created by man. The rules are the metrics, the game is the message, and the intention is beauty. Therefore, in poetry, words not only have meaning, but also have rhyme, rhythm, and beat. Poetry and music. Poetry is in between literature and music. It is also a science and a form of art. The science, the part of the poetry created by the left side of the brain. The game, the message, the narrative, the words that create phrases, that form judgments, and transmits ideas. The rule of poetry is the grammar, the metrics, the accents, verses, alexandrines, hyperboles, or alliterations. The intention of poetry is to combine both the message and the metrics into a form of art, where what the words say is as important as how words are said. Poetry cube. Order, coherent, structured, and melodic. Coherent, game content. Incoherent, unstructured, structured, discordant. Rule, grammar. Melodic, intention, meter, rhyme. Chaos, unstructured, incoherent, and discordant.